Buenas tardes. Mi inglés es muy defectuoso, de manera que todo lo que yo diga en inglés será traducido por las intérpretes que están al fondo. Tendrán ustedes la versión mía y la versión correcta en inglés que podrán seguir por sus audífonos. Good afternoon and welcome to the Carlos de Amberes Foundation, a place where Europeans find a home. Today, through its former president Aleksander Kwaśniewski, we warmly welcome Poland. This is a nation that in 2024 celebrates the 20th anniversary of its accession to the European Union and will also hold the presidency of the European Union Council during the first quarter of the coming year. To mark this milestone, the Carlos de Amberes Foundation is organizing a series of events focusing on Poland. A couple of weeks ago, we had the honor of hosting Adam Michnik, who presented his latest book, In Price of Disobedience. Furthermore, we have extended an invitation to the Polish Prime Minister, Mr. Donald Tusk, to deliver the upcoming commemorative lecture, and we are hopeful that he will accept. Today, we are privileged to have two distinguished speakers with us, two individuals who have both deep insight and first-hand experience in many of the topics under discussion. At the Carlos de Amberes Foundation, our aim is to foster reflection on Europe's future, encouraging debate on the challenges and priorities that Poland should address during his term at the helm of the European Union Council, while contributing to the strengthening of the European project. As a physicist by training, as Javier Solana, allow me to reference one of Poland's most significant figures in Europe's history, Nicolaus Copernicus. It is our hope that in paraphrasing his heliocentric theory, Poland's European Union presidency will serve as the central sun illuminating the path of the Union must follow, bringing about a Copernican revolution to overcome the uncertainty facing our continent. We are fortunate today to be joined by Aleksander Kwaśniewski, an eminent Polish politician and journalist who served as President of Poland from 1994 to 2005. His presidency was characterized by the modernization of Poland, rapid economic growth, and drafting of a new Polish constitution, 1997, and Poland's accession to NATO, 1999, and the European Union, 2004. In fact, in July 1990 and 1994, we were privileged to host President Kwaśniewski at the seminars on Central Europe held at the Miramar Palace in San Sebastián. as part of the summer course of the University of the Basque Country. During Poland's NATO accession process, President Kwaśniewski worked alongside Mr. Javier Solana, who at the time was Secretary General of NATO, and he is now a trustee of this institution. Today, discussion will be moderated by Romana Sadurska, and both speakers will address topics and critical importance for the present and future of the continent. Given the current geopolitical landscape, we must tackle urgent issues such as the ampliation of the European Union security and the war in Ukraine. This event has been organized by the Carlos de Amberes Foundation in collaboration with the Embassy of the Republic of Poland in Spain and the support of the Fundación Ramón Areces and Deloitte. We are grateful for the collaboration and generosity of these institutions. Without further ado, I now give the floor to the Chargée d'Affaires of the Republic of Poland, Mrs. Monika Cepowska.
Buenas tardes, estimadas señoras, estimados señores. Muchas gracias por venir a este magnífico evento que Embajada de Polonia aquí en Madrid está coorganizando con Fundación Carlos de Amberes. Si me permiten, el resto de mi intervención lo haré en inglés para que nuestro invitado de Polonia no tenga que esperar la interpretación y podamos pasar lo más pronto a la parte principal de nuestro encuentro. First of all, I would like to thank the Carlos Amberes Foundation and its president, Mr. Miguel Angel Aguilar, for their perseverance in helping to bring about this meeting of Mr. Javier Solana and President Aleksander Kwaśniewski, both extremely important personalities for the history of modern history of Europe. In Poland, their names are associated with cementing our country's course towards membership in NATO. They were the right people in the right place at the right time, fostering democratic values, contributing to the advancement of the rule of law, and integrating Poland into a broader European democratic family. By the way, it was made formally here in Madrid in 1997 at the NATO summit. I have my own memory from that moment of history, and I allow myself to share it with you since you are here, and since I think you have influenced my personal life decisions, and I believe that many young Poles at that time would share the same emotion. I was supposed to be a doctor, and at the moment when Poland entered its European path and European integration and cooperation, stronger cooperation with the transatlantic, within the transatlantic chemistry, and politics were moving from words to deeds. I was very much into my university studies, and I was studying a lot, and the only entertainment I had at that time was watching international news on TV. There was not much going on in Poland other than that, and all of a sudden I realized that Poland was more and more present on international news, that Polish politicians were sitting at the same table as world leaders, and I realized that Poland is soon going to experience something very special, and the country that at that time was rather poor and our homeland was rather gray will soon be in bloom, and the young people, not only young, everybody who would dare, would have a chance to experience something completely new and enter the world and the world of opportunities that Europe was giving at that time to the Eastern Europeans. So very soon, from studying books and chemistry and mitochondria, I moved into studying history and politics, and there I am. I managed to, I believe, have a very successful and interesting career, and I would like to thank you for that, because I think if it wasn't for that presence on TV, many young people in Poland would not believe that we may have an interesting future. Your commitment and decisions not only influence politics, they also influenced lives of many people. Here we are. Poland is a member of NATO for 25 years. Poland is a member of European Union for 20 years. In less than 20 days, we will assume a presidency of the European Council, and we will be leading the European agenda with security at its core. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you will enjoy this intellectual feast, provided by two great minds whose lack of dependence on the political situation gives them a privilege of speaking the truth above all else. Thank you very much.
De aquí, ¿no? Buenas noches, señoras y señores. Dobry wieczór, panie i panowie. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We are going to speak in English, so from now on, maybe somebody will need to make translation of my English to the public, but I will venture to do that. Ambassador Krzepkowska was saying something about the impact of the accession of Poland and to the NATO and the European Union. And though I'm coming from the generation of your parents, probably, I must say that I spent the first 30 years of my life hoping for this day to come. So, you know, there is like a chain of experiences and hopes that we represent humbly. So, what can I say? This is a real and rare privilege and honor to be sitting next to two people who were true protagonists and true first role actors in this drama developing in Europe in the last 30 years. They met almost 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, and ever since they were always in the front line of the important decisions that shaped our continent. So I think there is nobody better than Javier Solana to portray President Kwaśniewski. Javier, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. For me, it's a great pleasure to be here today. If I were to think about what is Europe for me, as far as people is concerned, about how leaders behave, for me, the name of Aleksander Kwaśniewski comes immediately to my mind. I consider Aleksander a very good friend. We have worked together in very, very important moments of our political life and about the life of Europe. I met the first time Aleksander when he was Minister of Youth and Sports, and he was in Barcelona around the Olympic Games of Barcelona. So that's the first time that I met him. But then, in 1995, we met him again. He was already president, was elected president, and I was at that time recently appointed Secretary General of NATO. And from there on, our hands were together, and we have been together trying to get the best out of the European Union for your country. I accompanied him in the entrance of Poland into NATO. It was a very difficult negotiation sometimes, but we did it very well. And the second thing is we were together also when Poland entered into the European Union. At that time, I was not in NATO, but I was the High Representative of the European Union for Security and Foreign Affairs, and I dealt with him in all these processes. Now, for me, I say it again, when I think about Europe and about personal relations, to my mind, it doesn't come, I don't know, Jacques Delors. For me, personally, Aleksander Kwaśniewski is the closest thing that I can say about what is it to be Europeans and how to be really good friends in difficult positions, but at the same time maintaining always our faith in the future and our will of dialogue. For us, dialogue, consensus building was absolutely fundamental. And I will tell you that, with this I finish, a word about Aleksander Kwaśniewski, Javier Solana, in Ukraine. At the first election in 2004, you remember, were elections in Ukraine, the first democratic elections. At that time, you know that President Putin was already president of Russia. And he was very decided that those elections were won by the candidate that he had. And the candidate that he had didn't win. And they tried to make it, they give it around and try to see that he have won. And then Aleksander was president of Poland, and he called me. I was the High Representative of the European Union, and he told me, let's go together to Ukraine. And we went together to Ukraine, and we spent there several days, and we solved the problem. At the end of the day, election was repeated, and the candidate that the people wanted was elected. And I think for us was a fundamental thing, because really it's the first time that the European Union, at the very beginning, in foreign policy, acted in a coordinated fashion, represented by him as President of Poland, and myself, High Representative of the European Union Foreign and Security Policy. For us, so you can imagine what is the meaning of having him here with me, here in Madrid, and looking at the situation that we are looking in Europe today. I am sure that if we were together in office, we will do things better.
Well, this is supposed to be really a conversation between the two of you, so
but we need a facilitator.
Facilitator, yeah.
No. If I may, I want to start with some very personal comments before we will answer the questions, serious questions. First, Miguel Angel. He was a very brave person, because when you as a president are invited, well, that is nothing special. Ex-president is more complicated, but still it means that the people remember you. But he invited me first time even not to San Sebastian, but to Santander. It was before San Sebastian for this conference, and it's beginning of 90s. I'm only the leader of Social Democratic Party of Poland, but Miguel understood, well, that this guy has some future in front of him, you know. It was such good investment, frankly speaking. I am so glad to see you here, to be your guest again, and I tell you, I respect you, I love you, and all the best, Miguel. Madam Ambassador, it's very moving. You said that you wanted to be a doctor, and because of all these changes and to some extent my role and my influence, you decided to be a politician, to be involved in all these European issues, etc. And of course, it's difficult to say what would happen if would happen, etc. But my opinion is I don't know how you would be a good doctor. But I know that you are great diplomat and ambassador, and please, because she's only 2 months in this place, please applaud and encourage her to this next month. And Javier is a special person for me, because I tell you, that is not only in politics, but also in life. It's so difficult to find such genuine friends, the real friends, that you know that morning, evenings and nights you can count on this man or woman. And from the very beginning, of course, we had more active relationships, less, because we had different positions in our life. But always I can say Javier was a man with open mind, very cooperative, very interested to help, not to destroy something, but to help, to create something positive. And we achieved so many things together. NATO membership, and I tell you the story from Madrid, from here. One of the most touching pictures what I have in my mind is we as a Poland, we are waiting in this conference place close to the airport, Barajas, and this final meeting should start, but it's delayed 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour, and we have no information, and we are more and more nervous because something happened. Maybe some country is against us, etc. And finally, we are closed because I said, no, we go to closer to the conference room because we should be there, when they decided, yes, we have to go, because then it's no chances that someone will change the mind, we are there. And then, the doors are open and Javier is coming to me and speaking, hombre, you are a member of NATO, and it was so simple, so nice, and it was all these positive emotions there, by Javier. With the European Union, the process was much more complicated, but step by step, we reached this membership as well. And I think such very intense experience for both of us was Orange Revolution and Ukraine, because he said that we spent some days. Now, of course, physically we spent, 1 week, 10 days in this period, November and January 24, 25. But online, with all this information, we spent 2 months fighting, first against civil war, what was very possible in Ukraine those time, and to create the rules for democracy. And this decision of Supreme, it wasn't our decision to repeat the second round of the election, it was the decision of Supreme Court. But to prepare political forces, to prepare this framework for this decision was really not easy. And our trio, very special trio, because Javier was there as a representative of European Union, very, very high ranked. Valdas Adamkus, the president of Lithuania, was there. By the way, I met him 1 week ago in Vilnius. He's 98, but mentally in good shape, physically, of course, not so good. But when on the end of the meeting in his house, he invited me for the 100 years birthday, I said, well, he's okay. Really, he's very well. But still, he reminds all this Ukrainian efforts, because it was very special experience in our life, and also success. Javier said that it was such symbol that European policy, this common European policy, works. But not only works, it was successful, what is not very often, that's so. But I tell you finally, and then I'm ready to answer the questions, you are lucky people if you will meet good friend in your life. You are extremely lucky people if you will find a good friend in the politics. I found 2 good friends in my life. Personally, Javier; in politics, Javier Solana with all his position. Thank you. Gracias, Javier.
So these were times of uncertainty, but also of hope. Today, we are in times more of uncertainty than hope. The Polish presidency that starts, as Miguel Angel mentioned, on the 1st of January, starts at the moment that is convulsive and full of uncertainties for at least two fundamental reasons: that we have the change of presidency in the United States, President Trump is coming back to take the office, and the war of Russia on Ukraine is continuing. When you look at the documents of this presidency, of course, these are documents of all the institutions, because this is not just one country that prepares the presidency, it's a collective work of the EU institutions. You will see written in capital letters two words, basically. This is security in all possible contexts, and defense, which is a special kind of security, to assure military security. So it's clear that we are moving we are mutating. I think this was Giuseppe Borrell who said that we have to mutate from herbivore to carnivore, which is a metaphor for saying that Europe has to start thinking in terms of hard power and not only in terms of soft power. Well, this is also true that you probably think this was President Macron who said that, but I think this was first High Representative Borrell. So my first question to you, gentlemen, is it possible to have effective force, effective strength, effective power of deterrence and defense, having 27 relatively small and not very well equipped armies? Is the rapid response force that Europe has, this 5,000 troops, sufficient? Obviously, this is a question which has a simple answer. And are we prepared to have some kind of European rapid response force that would be parallel to the national armies in the Union? Of course, it needs a lot of political will. And this is probably where this union is still lacking a clear expression, a clear aggregate of this political will, because having an army without central command, without the deployment manual, without the doctrine, and without the political center that takes decisions and take responsibility for the actions, it's rather utopian. So that's my question.
It's a very good question. And I think this, because he was a Minister of War of Europe, and he was Minister of Foreign Affairs of Europe, he will answer this question. Is possible to know or not to organize this force together? I will start with this next month in Polish presidency, and because I was only President of Poland. And I tell you, frankly speaking, that is extremely difficult time. We have 6 months, and these 6 months are marked by very special changes, because you mentioned 20th of January we have a Trump as again President of the United States, and this term of Trump will be much more, let's say, intense, because his team is much more pro-Trump, much more loyal to him, and he's more experienced because he has been the president of the United States for 4 years. So I think we should expect a lot of decisions at the beginning of this. So it means during Polish presidency. But it's not only that. That's February we have election in Germany, earlier election. And I'm sure that finally in Germany these pro-European forces will win. But the process of creation of the new government will take a lot of time, probably to the end of Polish presidency. Then we have a political governmental crisis in France. And that is 2 most important countries in this traditional structure of European Union with a lot of troubles. But that is not the end of the story. because mid of May in Poland we have a presidential election, which is also decisive for the future of Poland, because in our mixed system, when executive power is mainly on the side of the government, but partly on the side of the president, especially, difficult to explain it, but such mixed system we have in Poland. And today we have, in fact, no cohabitation. We have absolutely, to some extent, sabotage from the side of the president vis-à-vis the government. And the government needs to have the president who is ready to cooperate. But to win this election, mid of May next year, especially if the situation, external and internal, will be difficult, economic situation as well, inflation, etc., is not decided. That's its open issue. So today, if you ask me who will win the Polish elections, so I'm careful. Of course, the favorite is the representative of the majority. Democratic majority would be good, but that is not decided. So why I'm speaking about these elements? Because it means that this presidency will be extremely complicated and very much under pressure of all these external processes, elections and events. Priority of Polish presidency is simple and obvious, is a security, not only defense security, but also energy security, environmental security, all kinds of security, food security, etc., etc. And I'm sure that this government, having really good specialists, very competent people, will try to use even these small windows opportunity to move the process of European integration forward. But we should be realistic. That cannot be breakthrough. That cannot be something extra, something unbelievable, because it's no, let's say, background for or not base for that. Well, that is about Polish presidency. Now, Javier, what do you think about future of Europe?
Well, I'm a little bit more optimistic than Aleksander. I think that the European Union, the description that he has made is correct. It is true that the situation in the European countries, among the European countries, it has been a movement to the far right. Remember that the number of commissioners today of the Social Democrats are 2. The rest are from other parties. The European Union used to be half and half Christian Democrats, PP, and Social Democrats. The situation today is not like that. So for us, our countries, your country, my country, we have to do a tremendous effort to see how we can continue pushing for the integration of Europe. And I think that in order to do that, I try to think always on the euro. Remember how the euro was built. The euro was not built because one day all the member states of the European Union decided to be part of the euro. It wasn't like that. At the beginning, there were 4 countries, then there were 5, and at the end, everybody was in the euro. But it was very important, the fact that not everybody entered at the same time. Those who were more reluctant, they needed to see the euro working. But at the end of the day, if it works, among 4, among 5, among 6, the rest will follow. Now, my dream is that that may happen also in other domains. In the domain of security, broad security, and even in military security, I think that we can move, if possible, in that direction. Because remember that we enter now into subjects that have to be decided by unanimity. And that is a big problem. We enter into the domain closer to the heart of the country, of the state, and therefore we need the unanimity of everybody. And if we want to do it without a time to really prove that the decisions that we are taking by a smaller group, it can be accepted by the rest because it works, We have to give the example that it may work. And I think that this is a manner in which I will try to, if I were in power, I will try to do that. Difficulties, many. Extra difficulties that France and Germany are not now in a position to really lead. But I hope that the German government will be a coalition, and a coalition probably pro-European.
No, for sure.
In France, we'll see. But I don't lose my faith or my confidence in the possibilities of having still France, Germany, Poland, Spain, etc., to be convinced that this is the sense of direction. Otherwise, probably we will have a poor future, or more poor future than what we can have. And I think we should not allow the European Union to be pessimistic, or I think that we have to think and rethink that Europe has always been a direction forward. At the speed of light, no. At the speed of sound, yes, because by talking we have been able to move. And I would like to transmit to you a sense not of naive optimism, but real, how would you say, realism. And I think that we have to maintain that state of mind, state of will, and keep on going. And it is true, Alexander, that in our times we did enormous things. I mean, imagine yourselves that we are at the moment that I was High Representative. We deploy, in matter of security, we deployed the first military activity in Africa. Nobody believed that that would happen ever. We spent months in Africa trying to resolve problems very delicate. And if I tell you that the forces from the European Union were opening the border between Gaza and Israel, Gaza and Egypt, that border, which is now the most difficult border, that border was open with forces of the European Union. And at that time, nobody thought that it would be possible. But it was possible. It was the will of doing it, and that will, in a part, was mine. But I was able to convince, and we did it. And so this is the type of life that I've lived. And therefore, I don't see any reason why we are not going to continue at the speed, not the speed of light, the speed of sound, or the speed of the tip-talk. But let's not get into the pessimistic mode. It's irrelevant. To be pessimistic is a stupidity.
No, that's absolutely correct. And I think what Javier said, that is the next evidence that we need him in political life again, because I tell you, such optimism is necessary to do something positive. But you said will. And really, you know, we need will, we need some determination. And what is the problem? That I see less and less this determination. Of course, it would be easy for me to say that, you know, what is the difference, who is a pessimist, you know, by definition. The pessimist is well-informed optimist. You know, if you are optimist and you had a lot of information, then you started to be pessimist. But I cannot say that Javier has not enough information. I think that his optimism is because he's from Spain, and you have here a lot of sunny days. And for you, it's much easier to be optimistic during even such months like December or November. In Poland, it's not so easy. So please understand me. I'm coming in the middle of this very gray season in my country, and maybe I'm not enough optimistic. But I agree with Javier Solana that we can overcome these problems, but we need more determination, more such serious, realistic leadership, and what he said, speaking about Eurozone, this understanding of the nature of the process. we cannot expect that everybody will be prepared to accept decision from the first day. Maybe we need some weeks, maybe months, maybe years. But at the end of the day, we should be together. So that is dialectic, of course. That is something what we know from the history. But in European Union history, it worked.
And also the example of Euro says that some things we can do between more willing parties. Like-minded, more prepared, and common interest parties. That maybe, you know, not everything is for this 27. We can, so we can maybe look this way. If there is this optimistic spirit here, thank you, Javier. Sorry? Partly optimistic, yes. But you're in Madrid, so you are a little bit under the influence.
I am under influence.
Exactly. So, considering your experience in dealings with Russia and with Ukraine, because you have also personal experience of talking to Putin and to the Russian government and so on, considering that Putin considers that the greatest geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century is the disintegration of the Soviet Union, how do you see the future? I know this is a difficult question. How the possible outcome of the Ukraine war?
You want to start?
And of course, with considering also that President Trump may want to make a quick deal. No?
In my opinion, in this complicated situation of the world, this one will decide about the future. Because we have a lot of challenges. We have climate change, we have Middle East, we have many conflicts in Africa, we have etc., etc. And in my opinion, the hottest and the problem is Russian aggression on Ukraine and how to find a solution. And again, I'm very sorry that maybe I will be not enough optimistic even, or despite even the Spanish sun, etc. Because I tell you the story, it's in my books, you can read it. 2002, Putin is a very young president. He's only 1 year, it's July. Why I remember this day so well? Because I was on my return flight or return road from South Korea after opening match of the World Championship in football, Poland and South Korea. Don't ask me about the result. We lost 0-2. And I spent 1 day in Moscow, and Putin invited me to his private apartments in Kremlin. We spent 4 hours together speaking Russian, no witnesses, no translators, nobody, what the Eastern leaders like very much because they don't feel comfortable with some witnesses. And, you know, long conversation. I tell you only one thing, that I asked him, well, tell me, what are your main goals? I was a senior guy because I was 7 years in the office. He was only 1 year, some months. He said, no, I have two such main goals. The first, to rebuild Russian position on international stage, in international politics. It's very obvious, you know, that each president should have such goal, you know, that's to build more or less, but such position. But the second was much more dangerous. He said, I want to rebuild Великая Россия, the great Russian. We spoke Russian. The great Russian. And I know very well, because I know the history, that great Russian means the concept of Russia in sense of Russian Empire during Tsarist time or Soviet Union. It means the huge territorial entity with the zone of influence on the neighboring countries. And I know very well, and I knew very well, that you cannot create, you cannot establish great Russia again without Ukraine. You cannot establish this great Russia without Belarus. You cannot do it without Caucasus and Central Asia. maybe Baltic states so-so, because they were never the real part of this empire. It was a result of Second World War, frankly speaking. And of course, Moldova is a small it was his idea. I thought that he's a young president, young man, he's only 2 years older as I am, and that is his, let's say, dream, something like that. After Orange Revolution, 2004-5, I realized that it started to be his plan. Why? Because he was extremely afraid about everything was happened in Kiev. Because for him, you know, the Ukraine, the biggest, the most important post-Soviet country, or post-Soviet republic, and then you see that the people on the streets, they can ask for democracy, for fair election, for dignity. Well, it was much too much, because to move such mood or such feelings from Kiev, Maidan, to Red Square is not very far away, you know, that is possible. And I think since Orange Revolution, this plan, this dream started to be a plan. Since 2014, annexation of Crimea is an obsession. And today, the problem is that if Trump will want to discuss Ukrainian issues with Putin, or Xi Jinping will try to do it, or others, we have to know that he is obsessed in this element. And what means this obsession? And I repeat you here in Madrid. Putin wants to have entire Ukraine in his hands, or in his zone of influence. Entire, 100%. Not 30, 40, 50, not Lugansk, Donetsk, Crimea only, entire Ukraine. And he will try to do it. He did historical mistake, because this war, this full-scale military aggression was absolutely wrong. And the result is dramatic, because 3 years, he expected 3 days is enough, maybe 1 week, but not 3 years. And still he has not a great success. But he will continue. As long as he is in the office, he will continue to fight for this entire Ukraine in his zone of influence. What will happen with his successor, and when it will happen, nobody knows. But I'm not so sure that his successor will be much more, let's say, democratic or liberal or open, maybe for a very short period, like Khrushchev after Stalin, or Gorbachev after Brezhnev. But that is only episode in Russian history, not a long-term process. So that is important to understand. Now, Trump promised during the campaign that he will solve the problem during 24 hours. Okay. And what it means. And he will try to do it. And I tell you, in my opinion, is one of the most important, let's say, driving force of his thinking is not that he wants to fulfill his promises, because he's not so good guy, but he is very much determined to look for Nobel Prize for Peace. It sounds funny, I know, but because Obama, of course, not rightly, absolutely not rightly, and too early, at least, was awarded by this. That is his dream. He tried to do it during first term with Kim Jong-un, with North Korea. It was absolutely unsuccessful. Now that is the next plan. I offered peace. Yeah. But speaking seriously, Trump can offer not the peace. He can offer frozen war. He can offer ceasefire, what probably will happen, because if Trump will say to Ukrainians, no, we'll stop the support, we'll stop financial assistance, we'll stop some other elements, what Zelensky can do. But ceasefire means frozen war, not peace, and that is very much in favor of Putin. Why? Because for Putin is a time to rebuild this military structure for the war, to produce more equipment, weapons, rockets, etc., and to prepare more Northern Korean soldiers to fight. For the Western world, is a good excuse. Well, the war is stopped, we have no more victims, we have no more injured people, maybe this is okay. And because this Ukrainian fatigue is quite natural to some extent and obvious, that it will be accepted. Wrongly, but accepted. But this frozen war is a drama for Ukraine. Why? Because they will have 30 or even more % of the territory occupied. Second, nothing on the paper, not a peace agreement, nothing. They will have no security guarantees, because Putin says NATO not, Trump says the same. NATO is much too much. It means the vacuum of security guarantees. And then the very practical question. You want to ask us about reconstruction plan investments. What kind of investments we can invite to the country with the shape, with the state of frozen war? When this new attack will come? Tomorrow, next month, next year, for investments, for money, stability, even in very, very delicate elements like stability of legislation is important. Legislation is there's such detail you can say. And we speak about security, we speak about the existential issues. So, and for Ukraine, I think it would be really very dramatic. In my opinion, I'm involved in Ukrainian issues since independence of Ukraine. It means 91, so that is 33 years now. Such not a good deal, but something what I could understand as a, let's say, necessity of this time would be, okay, we accept that Russians are, it means that occupied territories are under Russian control. We don't recognize officially this situation, but this part is under Russian control. And this Ukraine, the 60%, 65% of Ukraine territory, has absolutely serious security guarantees from the democratic world. What it means? NATO membership. That's it. Nothing different, nothing on the paper, because they had Budapest Memorandum 94, it was signed by permanent members of Security Council. So if such deal, what is absolutely unfair, what is not something what I say, well, that is this really idea of peace deal. No, it's not. But that can be the part of the stabilization for Ukraine, open the doors to the West, chances for reconstruction plan, chances for investments, and then we'll see. Of course, we can say, because, life is life, and we don't know what will happen next 20 years, 30 years, etc. I can tell you one thing only about Crimea, because the problem, the Crimea was the one of the main elements in this Putin's policy, because he never accepted that Crimea is a part of Ukraine. And as you know, this was decision of Khrushchev, 54. I remember this date because it's the date of my birth. But it was not because of that. Don't worry.
It wasn't the gift.
It was not the gift because, but it was the gift, to some extent, gift. For Ukraine, it was 300 years of Pereswar agreement between Cossacks and Russians. And Khrushchev was a man who was a leader of Communist Party of Ukraine during Stalin's time, and it was some kind of his, how to say, the feeling of guilty
for the big family.
Yeah, but everything happened 54 before all this de-Stalinization process. But that is, and of course Putin even added to that story that the Khrushchev was drunk, he didn't know what he's doing. It's not true. Because the reason of this decision, that is very well explained in the book of ex-president of Ukraine, Kuchma, Ukraine is not a Russian, a very good title, he said it was a very pragmatic decision. First of all, nobody, those times, 54, nobody in Soviet Union thought that the Soviet Union can collapse first.
Yeah.
All these borders between Soviet republics was not a problem. It was absolutely something quite artificial. And thirdly, if you see all these elements of infrastructure, Crimea was extremely dependent on Ukraine. Water, energy, transport, roads, etc. The bridge from the Kerch, from Russia to Crimea didn't exist. You know, it was very, very obvious decision, which was, of course, sold like a gesture. You know, very typical in the politics. But speaking about the future of Crimea, you and in this room we have young people as well. Please remember what I tell you. In next 20 years, we'll have new referendum about the future of Crimea. And the result of this referendum will be not whether Crimea is Russian, part of Russia, or whether Crimea is a part of Ukraine. The question will be whether Crimea is independent Muslim Tatars Republic. Because if you see demography, result is absolutely decided. Mm-hmm. The average number of the birth rate among Russian families in Crimea is something close to 0.9. In Ukrainian families, 0.5. In Tatars, Muslim families, 5.0. Let's wait next 20 years.
Javier? Well, we need an element of optimism.
I am not going to say anything.
But it was quite optimistic, what you want.
Yeah, in 20 years, the Tatars... Well, so Stalin was not really effective when he dislodged the Tatars to...
No, because such decisions to take the people from one part of the world, this original part, to the other, are unsuccessful everywhere. Even if you have the movement in the United States, this discussion about the Indians and everything what happened there, well, my God, that's his short and middle term concept can be successful, but long term and especially morally is absolutely wrong.
I agree basically with the position of Aleksander. We have spoken about this topic frequently, and we don't come to anything very different from what he has said. Now, one thing to understand better the position of Putin, and it talks about Crimea. Crimea was taken at the moment in which the European Union accepts to get a commercial relationship special with Ukraine. It was not NATO. It was the commercial links that we were to create with Ukraine. And that was so strong in Putin that the first grab was on economic issues with the European Union. So really it's very deep ingrained in Putin that Crimea is not going to be a free country. And it should be ingrained in our mind also that we cannot tolerate that a brutal act of taking a country can be rewarded. So it will be the end of our thinking and the manner in which we live. So we have to find the mechanism. And I think the mechanism should be time. I think we have to play with time, for one side, and the other, the deep in which Ukraine, the speed at which Ukraine feels that it will be a safe country. Now, is that absolutely necessary that at the very, very beginning is part of NATO? Let's look at it. You cannot be part of NATO by signing a letter. NATO is an alliance. Therefore, when you enter into NATO, you have to be prepared to defend the others. So, to be accepted to enter into NATO, you have to have a certain level of development, in a way. Now, that period of time in which we done that adaptation, it would not necessarily be part of NATO, but knowing that you are preparing to enter into NATO. And I think playing with these times is also a very intelligent thing that we could do. Not to sign immediately, but to say, prepare yourself because you will be. Prepare yourself. And in that period of time, we can do a lot of things. It depends very much on what is going on in the United States. The fate of Ukraine, in a way, is on the hands at this point in time on the United States, for two reasons. One, because President Trump is not very keen on putting any more help into Ukraine. The budget that he had in mind to use for Ukraine is not exorbitant quantities. This is the first reason is because of that. And second, the defense of Ukraine now is based on the satellites that surround the Earth, which are not Americans, are not Europeans, belong to somebody called Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the owner of all the satellites where every single ballot that comes from Ukraine has to go through the channels of those satellites. You have seen the first conversation of Trump with Zelensky. You remember the picture. It's Trump, plus Elon Musk, plus Zelensky. So Zelensky is a very important player in this occasion. You have to begin to think that NASA, NASA, you know what I'm talking, NASA, doesn't exist any longer. Now, everything which is in the skies, satellites, securities, etc., is on the hands of very few people. In fact, it's on the hands of one person, which is Elon Musk. So this is a very important thing that we have to put into the equation, because imagine a messy situation. Imagine that President Trump decided to increase taxes for import from China. Well, that's a difficult thing. It's easy to do it. I mean, it's easy to sign, but difficult to do it, because that will bring probably inflation into the United States. But put it for a moment in the mind of Elon Musk. He has the most important Tesla factory. The most important Tesla factory is in Shanghai. I've seen it. And it's very difficult that Elon Musk is going to allow any problem, serious problem into that factory. So the things which are at this point rotating around us are very many. And I think on that we have to count also to solve Ukraine. And so we have to see how these things evolve, and it will take only a few months. By month of February, we have already deployed the administration of Trump, and we'll see how things are going on. We still don't know, but you know very well what Trump was in the campaign. No? I will not put any more money into Ukraine. this is not, hasn't repeated anymore after he won elections, but in the back of his mind is there. Now, what can we do, the Europeans? The Europeans, we have to be more determined into the budgets for defense, for security in general, but in particular for defense at this point in time. We have an important change in the structure of the Commission. For instance, we have a commissioner for defense, something that we never had before. And we have, institutionally, we have already many moves in the right direction. For instance, we had before in the last Commission put in, well, the last period of time, we put a Center for Research on Defense, which is very efficient. It is very good. We had a Spaniard leading that in the last 5 years, and he did a very good job. So things are moving internally into the European Union, even before we head into consideration the real situation of today with Ukraine. At that time, Ukraine was not part of the problem. So the elements of things that can be done are there. The political will supposedly is there. Full-fledged, I don't know. It will depend very much also on the relationship of the European Union, NATO, and President Trump. And I'll give you my impression from my experience. Trump was president 4 years ago, before Biden, for 4 years. He came to Europe on several occasions to talk about NATO. And he wanted to talk about NATO fundamentally about money. You need to meet rapidly the 2% of defense expenditure. Okay, meeting is over, and then comes the gossiping. And Trump says, don't worry too much about the 2%. I could settle by 1.7 or even 1.44. But you have to buy American. And therefore, if we buy that, the technological development of the European Union is over. No? If we have to. But Trump is a dealer. You do, I that, take, give. So it will be very interesting to see what happens after January the 6th. What Trump really is. And what is the relationship also? The big player, which is on the table, is Musk. Is an important player. With China, with Ukraine, in these two problems, he's a player. In the Middle East, I don't know if he has satellites of the Middle East, but in Ukraine, in Russia, in China, he is a player.
But that's really the new era of the world and democracy in the world. I tell you, I'm speaking. I remember very well when Americans pressed Ukrainians to accept or to adopt the law against oligarchs. They started with Poroshenko. For Poroshenko, President Poroshenko was not easy because he was one of the oligarchs. Finally, Zelensky did it, and the main element was how to define oligarch, what means oligarch. And it was 3 elements of this definition. First, the man who has a lot of money. Second, the strong influence on media. And third, political influence. And of course, it was concerning such persons like Akhmetov, Kolomoisky, Poroshenko, Yaroslavsky, Pinchuk, etc. And then when the law was adopted, these guys decided to do something, not to be, by definition, oligarchs. Mainly, they decided to resign of the groups what they had in the parliament, something like this, let's say so-called political influence. Some of them decided to resign of media channels. No one resigned of money. I don't know why. That's okay. But because of this American pressure, because of this Ukrainian law, we know who is the oligarch. And I have a question. How to describe Elon Musk? Who is he? The man, the richest man in the world, with having the most influential media platform X, and today the member of American administration. So I understand that the new era proposed by Donald Trump is that the oligarchs will at least influence political situation in the world, and maybe they will decide about it. If they will decide in a good way, it's okay, but that is a change of the paradigm. Because maybe next time will be much more important to see not the meeting of G7, G20, something other G, but the meeting of the main oligarchs from United States, China, Germany, France, UK, Russia, etc., etc. They will decide. No, I'm not joking. This is really the problem of the world today, because that is, in my opinion, a real danger. These guys, because even the Trump was elected, he was fighting for that. He had even some problems but finally he has his legitimate president of the United States. But the oligarchs, who is control these guys? In which parliament they inform about their actions and decisions, etc. Now that is a very dangerous period in the history of, at least of democracy, but maybe of the world. But it was only by the way. Very optimistic contribution again.
Well, but it is an important point, of course, also for the development of Ukraine at this point of time when Ukraine is soliciting entry in the European Union. So, you know, all the processes of democratization, of straightening up, so to speak, the legal framework, the rule of law, the human rights, transparency, these are all important conditions for the NATO membership, but above all for the European Union.
Let me remind you what has happened in Romania. Romania suddenly appeared somebody who in the primary elections won. Unknown, and he won. And then he lost. I mean, he has not been elected, but that was a manipulation by Russia. That is happening in Romania. It's happened in many other countries. We know the names of the countries in which they are more interested on disturbing, on disturbing the political life. It's very dangerous, really, the situation from that point of view also. Mm-hmm. There are countries that are members of the European Union that may be infected already. So we have to be very aware of the situation, it will be very important to see the first movements of this new description that you have made. Because they are oligarchs, really, in that sense.
Yes, today, during this Club de Madrid meetings, I discussed this problem of Romania, and the problem is really very serious, you know, because because of this Russian influence, the first round of the election is cancelled. But it's not enough evidence to eliminate this this pro-Russian candidate, Georgescu. And probably he will start in this repeated elections. And because of everything what happened, his chances not only to win the first round, but to win the election are increasing. And that's the problem for all of us. I tell you, When I see this conflict, this struggle between democratic system, the rule of law, and authoritarian systems, and I know something quite well because we had 8 years of such semi-authoritarian project from led by Mr. Kaczyński and peace in Poland. You know, if I see this struggle, that I remind me the scene in one of Indiana Jones movies. I guess it was in Petra in Jordan, you know, when Harrison Ford is next to the champion, the master of all these arts of very special art of fights, and this guy is doing all these, you know, things so and better, and that is absolutely fantastic. This is amazing, and you are so, and then the answer of Harrison Ford is to take a Colt and to kill him. And this is more or less the situation when our democracy try to use all these, you know, legal methods, other methods here and here and here, and we spend a lot of time, it costs a lot of efforts and a lot of, and then finally this authoritarian says, "Puk," and the problem is solved. Of course, that's a simplification, you understand me, but this metaphor sometimes should be we should know about it. I don't know what will happen. You ask us about Ukraine. I tell you, next months are decisive. We'll see what will happen. If Ukraine will have some kind of stability for next years, of course, without all these regions which are occupied, because that is unimaginable that Russia will return these parts to Ukraine. And then, of course, the Ukraine will face the real problem. First problem is to organize election, because today the election, according to the constitution, because of martial law, because of the war, are postponed. The problem is to organize this election, what is not easy because they have only part of the territory. Secondly, they have millions voters abroad, how to organize it. And third is the mood of the people. I think to win, frankly speaking, to win such election for Zelensky will be almost impossible in this situation of this frozen war. Who can be successor? I guess the sum of veterans, of generals, the people from experience on this real fight. Zaluzhny, who is now ambassador to London, I don't know, but that's probably the scenario. What means such leading role of, let's say, veterans, you know, the veterans of the war? What is very typical for all countries after the war? The veterans, they ask, no, now is our time, you know. We were fighting, we lost something, and now we want to decide about the future. And I think for Ukraine identity, such decision can be very, very positive. For some even negotiations can be also not bad, further negotiation, because they have very strong moral arguments. They were on front, they were fighting. Probably for democracy is not the best information, because you know, the veterans, the generals, they don't understand the rules of or the procedures of democracy very much. So, but we'll see. And one comment to everything what Javier said, that is important to understand also from Russian side. I went, because my meetings with Putin were finished after Orange Revolution. My last meeting is in May 2005, so that's so many years ago, 20 years ago almost. And we discussed this issue. And such typical melody of Putin was NATO never for Ukraine, but European Union, okay, no problem. And that is not true. Because we've seen always that when Ukraine was closer to European Union, the process was stopped. And I was a witness of that. I was a part of the process because I was a special envoy of European Parliament 2012-13 during Yanukovych time to facilitate this association agreement negotiations and to release political prisoners. With Pat Cox, we spent almost 2 years fighting for that. And Yanukovych, of course, Yanukovych was not a pro-European person. He wasn't a fan of European Union integration. But for him was quite obvious that if he will offer for Ukrainian people this association agreement, he will win re-election. No, it was absolutely 2014. It was obvious for him. And then 2014, August, during the meeting in Sochi, Putin said, no, never. European Union is not for you. You cannot sign this association agreement. That you have to know, in Spain you know very well that association agreement is the beginning of the long process. That is the next years. But for Putin it was very obvious from the very beginning, if Ukraine will make such first serious step into Europe, they will go further. So for him it was a correct strategy from his point of view to stop this process at the very beginning.
Let me go back. I mean, it's time is still to. Let me go back to the question that has reminded now, Alexander, on the economic relationship between Russia and the European Union. That is very important. And I think that 2014, 10 years after 2004, 10 years after, we lost again. And we lost without making sufficient response. The fact that it was not a bigger response to Crimea was a very big mistake. And you were not in office. I were not in office, but we were there. Remember that we were there because that was in Munich, and we have a meeting of the YES Foundation, and we went there together with the ministers that were still left in the negotiation, trying to maintain. Now, the meeting, everybody went home. By the time that it was recovered, something like a potential dialogue with Russia was too late. It was too late. And we are paying for that lack of decision in 2014. And we were there, remember? But we were not part of the negotiation. We were
Well, so rational optimist would say that time is a factor that may ease this situation. The rational pessimist would say that we may be running out of time because, because we have a lot of work to do, homework to do, to prepare ourselves for the situation of a frozen conflict, or frozen war.
Philosophically, you are absolutely right, because in our life we have a lot of dictators or candidates to be dictators, but we have only one tyrant, is a time, and we cannot win against time. So the time probably will change, maybe in some elements, the situation. The problem is, but that is for next debate. If you will invite me next time to Madrid, we can continue, because it's too serious and then too lengthy. The problem is Russia. And that is why it was a problem for me from the very beginning of this war. How to describe this war? Is it Putin's war or is it a Russian war? And I would like to say that it's a Putin's war. That is only the wrong decision of Putin personally or Russian leadership or Russian elites. But it's not true. It's not true. We see more and more that is more the Russian war. And support for Putin by simple Russians is quite serious. It is a big. I have no doubts if some who would organize presidential election in Russia today, Putin will win. I have no doubts. Maybe not 80%, but 55%, no question. And that's the problem. How to change the Russian mentality about themselves, about the world, about the future. And I remember from Munich, probably you've been also, do you remember such panel? Then was Kuleba, Minister of Foreign Affairs those time, Ann Applebaum and other colleagues. And the question of the moderator was very interesting. What, from your point of view, would be the end of the war, of this war? And it was, well, that some who, I don't remember who, said that, well, if Russia will return on the borders before 24th of February 22. So, okay. Kuleba, oh, no, you've been there because I remember our conversation after his statement. Kuleba, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, said, for me, the end of the war will be when the success of Putin will come to Kiev, and in center of the Kiev, on the knees, will ask for the forgiveness. Ukrainian people. Then Javier told me, Alexander, I'm close to 80, but I don't believe that I will see such scene in my life. I said, I'm 10 years younger, but I don't believe that I will see such scene as well. You know, we were very realistic in this concept. But Ann Applebaum, what I remember well, she said very important thing, and that is a problem. She said that for her, the end of this war will be when the simple, ordinary Russians says one day that this war was a historical mistake, was wrong. Not the leaders only, not the elites, but the people, the Russians. And unfortunately, in my opinion, we are very, very far away to such situation that the simple, ordinary Russians will say, no, it was a mistake, it was a historical mistake. And this historical mistake is also, I can explain to you simply why is so dramatic that such huge mistake. Because even Putin calls Ukrainians as brothers and sisters. And the natural question everywhere in the world is, if they are brothers, if they are sisters, why they kill them? Why they exterminate them? Exterminate. Why they kidnap the kids, etc., etc. Why are doing all these terrible things? Attack against cities, villages, strategic infrastructure, electricity, etc. That's your understanding of brotherhood and sisterhood? Something is wrong. And that's the real problem, you know. To solve this problem, we should, of course, think about ceasefire, some peace deal, reconstruction project. But the problem is much more complicated. How to change this mentality? How to change this imperialistic thinking about the world? And the last point, which is extremely dangerous, and that's, of course, Putin is more careful to say such things, but Medvedev, who was president as well, and now he's a crazy guy publishing all these things in some social media. But that is working. This explanation, this idea is working among the people, you know. Of course, the West is guilty. We want to destroy Russia fully. We want to destroy this Russia as a state, as a tradition, as a history, etc. And then, and that's his last point of Medvedev's statement, if the world will exist without Russia, it's better if the world will not exist at all. Okay. First, it's not true that we attack Russia, we want to make some territorial actions against it. No. We want to, and we were enough naive to create some space for good relations with Russia, in business, in trade, even in the politics. I remember very good all these actions, reset, all these bottoms of reset, etc., etc. It didn't work. But to create such thinking that if the world will be without Russia, it's better that whole the world will collapse. And this is really dangerous, because that's a suicidal approach, which can be very dangerous for all of us. Especially if that is announced by the ex-president of the country with nuclear weapon. Because if me, as an ex-president of Poland, I would like such stupid idea, I have no instruments for that, you know. I can kill the word only by my sense of humor, nothing more. That's okay.
Can we take any questions from the floor? Yeah.
Is it working? Buenas tardes, dzień dobry, dear speakers and everyone. Thank you for being here and for this interesting and really realistic discussion. My name is Alexandra Udovenko. I'm Ukrainian from Kyiv, who wants to work in the field of diplomacy, defending the interest of my country as you do. And I know this day will come. At the moment, I'm finishing my master's degree in international cooperation at the Complutense University of Madrid. And honestly, I have a lot of questions, but I understand the limited time, so I'm going to ask only one, but difficult one. Do you think, is it possible in general, and if yes, then how to combat the spread of fake news in Russia, considering the state control of the media and censorship? Because the clearest example of power of disinformation is we can see that after more than 2.5 years of Russian invasion of Ukraine, the majority of Russians, and not only Russians, still support the government's actions influenced by propaganda. And another case is that Russian propaganda also infiltrates the European Union, as we know, that undermines democracy in the world. So, in your opinion, what measures could be implemented to address this issue if it's possible? Thank you.
Thank you. Really, this is a very difficult question. I tell you, first, what is important, that we understand the problem, because really this is a problem. The Russian propaganda is very tough, is very focused, without limits, working domestically and internationally as well. And my opinion is, I'm not a specialist of all these new technologies, etc., but we have to respond, not only to stop this propaganda or this fake news, but also to deliver the different opinion, the different pictures, etc. To some extent, I'm optimistic because, in my opinion, in this world, it's impossible to control everything. So that's, in my opinion, even Russian public opinion, they have some approach, of course not in province, not in the villages, but in Petersburg, in Moscow, in big cities, they know very well what is going, because they have approach to many of real sources. But it's necessary, of course, that is one side. But from the other side, I think this time of manipulation is unbelievable, and that is a problem not only because of Russian influence. This is because of everything what is going in our countries. I tell you that the number of fake news concerning produced in Poland by Polish sources against political opponents is also unbelievable. You know, that is a new era. How we can control it? We can control it by some legal framework. Partly, maybe yes, but I'm not so sure. Technically, it's necessary to find some algorithms describing the information as a fake news from the very beginning. That is a new era. It is a new era of social media, it's a new era of all these digital instruments, and I think we have to find the solutions, the instruments, because without that, we can live in absolutely the chaos of information. And that is, of course, when some who delivers the information that this politician is a stupid guy, okay, so it's true, not true, that's not a problem. But if in this chaotic situation of information we'll have, for example, such fake news, like fake weather forecast, or fake information about roads, about something, that is a real, there's a physical danger for all of us. And you know, if we have too many fake news in these areas, it will create absolutely the lack of trust. And then, of course, you can have millions of information and no one will be accepted by the viewers or listeners as a real information. That is a mess. I'm not ready to find a solution, but I think we have the good specialists and the good the politicians should think about it, because that is a real danger.
May I?
Yep.
Question, yes. Hello, Małgorzata Kalbarczyk, a Pole living in Spain. I have a question because you are talking a lot about external dangers, right? But I'm very curious about internal ones, meaning you said about new era, you said about a lot of risks and challenges we have in the European Union, and we see a lot of, let's say, non-democratic parties coming very smoothly to power, or being very close to getting there. So my question is maybe for the next presidency of Poland, but in general for both of you, what do you think should the European Union do as an institution, but also the countries, the member states, to, I don't know, make sure that they promote democracy, they promote the values that were the foundation of European Union. Maybe also address the needs of people who feel excluded, and they are in many regions, not only in Poland, and we saw how populist parties can very easily accommodate those needs. So what do you see that European Union can do and its member states to make sure we do not have very powerful and triumphal race to power of non-democratic parties? Thank you.
Javier.
I cannot answer really because I haven't understood you really. I'm sorry. It's my fault or yours. But I think everything has been said here. We can go and go and go round and round and round, but the basic things we have it already discussed here. I don't think it's any more. A spectacular thing is going to come out. Now we have to continue thinking. And the answers, I wouldn't dare to give you any answer.
But of course, that is a very complex issue, but I tell you simply. First, we Europeans, we have to believe in this great idea. In my opinion, the European integration, the second one, biggest political project, successful project introduced by the people. The first was United States of America. European integration after World War II is a second one. So we have to believe this project is really extremely positive, valuable, and we should protect this project. What I said doesn't mean that the project doesn't need reforms, changes, etc. But all these changes should be protecting the main values: democracy, human rights, rights of women, rule of law, etc., etc. Everything what is a base, what is a pillar of European integration. Third, we have to discuss more actively with new generations. Why? Because for my generation, European Union was like a dream which came true. For you, it's something what is a part of your life. You know, when I speak with young people in Poland, and I said today I listened to TV that Romania and Bulgaria are full member of Schengen zone. Great news. Congratulations, and I'm very happy with that. Because for me, this picture, when Schengen was decided, of open borders, it was one of the most moving picture in my life. Because I tell you, when I was a student, like you, 70s, and I wanted to go to Great Britain because I had an invitation to Great Britain. It was necessary to have a British visa and 2 transit visas, Benelux visa and German visa, to go by train from Poland to Dover, to Calais and Dover to UK. And then the easiest was Benelux visa. This procedure was quite easy. More complicated was German transit visa, and of course extremely complicated was British visa because it was a visa for stay, not for transit. But I remember such picture from German embassy in Warsaw. Those time this embassy was in very small building in Saska Kępa, Katowicka Street, I remember very well. And the procedure was following: the morning was necessary to give all these documents with the passport, and evening, or let's say after 4 p.m., they gave us this how to say, stamps. And small garden in front of this small building of embassy, over the main entrance, small roof, and on this roof, this man from German embassy, Federal Republic of Germany, with a basket, and this basket, hundreds of passports, and he starts to read these Polish names, and he reads these Polish names with very strong German accent, what is the first problem, you know, because it sounds in Poland not so good historically. And when some who is, I'm here, and then he throw out this passport. If you see in front of your eyes this picture today, it looks very humiliating. You know, the names, throw out the passport. But all these people were so happy that finally they had this transit visa, and this first step to go to Europe was possible, that nobody thought about this German accent, about this procedure, about this basket, and all the things. Today, you know, you can go from Warsaw to Lisbon without passport, without visas. Of course, not without credit card, but that's a different story. That is a capitalism. But politically, that is a huge change. That is a historical change. And for your generation, that is natural. And we have to explain, not very dramatically, but very seriously, that can be not forever, that can change. And we have to fight for this common integrated Europe, as we are Europeans, as much as possible. Populism is a problem, but the populism is, of course, we have no time to explain why populism is so strong now. That is, to some extent, the problem of these new technologies, the problem with exclusion, lack of adaptation, more. But we have to understand that populism is much more the symptom as a program. And that is a problem for us. Because populists, they have a better communication with the people. Of course, they use a lot of simplifications. They use a lot of not very serious arguments. But they have this communication. And we, Democrats, we the people, especially we the people from the traditional parties, like socialists in Spain, or social democrats in Poland, or Christian Democrats in Germany, we lost our language of communication. And we have to renew this language. We find new arguments, to find more emotion, to understand that today, if I prepare the program of 30 pages, very clever program, nobody will read it. It's necessary to have some simple message in social media. And it's necessary to show own determination. And I tell you, that is what I expect from today's European politicians in Europe. Let's show your determination, that you are for Europe, that you are ready to overcome the troubles, that you are ready to fight, you are ready to struggle against all these anti-European forces, etc. Why? Because we are right. Because we have all this evidence of last many, many decades after World War II. We rescued Europe of the next wars, conflicts, etc. We had a lot of crises, we had a lot of problems, but we overcame all of them. And Europe is much more prosperous as was before. And last argument, because really the time is over. Look, migration is a problem and will be continued because migration is a part of the history of mankind from the very beginning. But where migrants from Africa, from Asia want to come, do you think that millions of these migrants they want to go to Russia? Or China? Or North Korea? Of course, Latin Americans, they want to go to United States, different case. But majority, huge majority of the migrants, they want to come here to Europe. Why? Because we are promising land. We are the place where they can find security, peace, chances, fulfillment of the hopes, etc. And we need such self-confidence that we are good. We are good. We Europeans, we are really good. We can fight. We can challenge all these problems. What the world is offering now to all of us. And I think sometimes the lack of determination, lack of self-confidence, and this poor communication creates such difficult situation in many countries. And I'm speaking also about Poland, and maybe mainly about Poland. So, dear Europeans here in Madrid, that is my appeal to you. Let's struggle for Europe, European integration, and we have chance to win. Thank you.
Miguel Ángel, I think on this...
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just one thing. You know why now is Aleksander Kwaśniewski is a good friend.
So on this optimistic note, we all know that the future... Encouraging and also optimistic, because you say it depends on us. So this is very important to know, and with this optimistic note, encouragement and realism, we can thank you very much for your attention.